Before the noise begins, before the pressure speaks, before the world makes its demands, there is a holy invitation waiting for you. An invitation not to rush, not to react, not to run ahead in your own strength, but to pause and meet with God first. Because the way you start your day determines the way you walk through it. What you touch first in the morning shapes what touches you for the rest of the day. Too many people wake up and immediately hand their peace to their phone, their schedule, their worries, or their responsibilities. But when you meet with God first, you are declaring something powerful. I will not let chaos set my agenda. I will not let fear direct my steps. I will not let pressure rule my heart. You are saying, God, you go first. When God orders your day, confusion loses its grip. When God orders your day, strength rises where weakness once lived. When God orders your day, doors open that effort alone could never unlock. You may not know everything that lies ahead, but when you start with God, you don't have to, because the one who holds the day is now walking in front of you. Meeting with God first is not about routine, it's about relationship. It's not checking a box, it's aligning your heart. It's saying, Lord, before I speak to people, speak to me. Before I make decisions, give me wisdom. Before I face battles, clothe me with your peace. In that sacred moment, anxiety quiets down, faith stands up, and your spirit gets anchored. There are battles you don't even see forming yet. But when you meet with God first, protection is already in motion. There are conversations you haven't had yet. But when you meet with God first, your words are seasoned with grace. There are challenges waiting later in the day. But when you meet with God first, you don't walk into them empty, you walk in empowered. God does not want to be squeezed into the leftover moments of your life. He wants to lead, not follow. When you give him the first moments of your morning, he redeems the remaining hours of your day. What looks overwhelming becomes manageable. What feels heavy becomes lighter. What seemed impossible becomes an opportunity for God's power to show up. So today, don't rush past the presence of God. Don't let urgency rob you of intimacy. Stop, breathe, and surrender your schedule to him. Ask him to order your steps, guard your heart, sharpen your focus, and align your desires with his will. When you meet with God before the noise starts, you are making a deliberate decision not to let the world define your mindset, your emotions, or your direction. The noise is not just sound, it is pressure, expectations, opinions, distractions, and fears competing for your attention the moment you wake up. It comes through notifications, responsibilities, deadlines, memories from yesterday, and worries about tomorrow. If you allow that noise to speak first, it will set the tone of your entire day. It will rush you, drain you, and scatter your focus before you ever take a step. But choosing to meet with God first places a holy pause between you and the chaos. In those early moments, before voices multiply and demands stack up, your spirit is most sensitive and your heart is most open. That is why meeting with God first is so powerful. You are not trying to hear him over the noise. You are hearing him before the noise even exists. In that space, clarity rises without effort. You begin the day grounded instead of reactive. You are no longer bracing yourself for what might happen. You are aligning yourself with the one who already knows what will happen. The noise of the world is urgent and loud, but it is rarely wise. It pushes you to hurry, to compare, to perform, and to prove. It tells you that everything is important and everything must be handled now. But when you meet with God first, urgency gives way to discernment. You begin to understand what truly matters and what can wait. Peace settles your thoughts, and your heart learns to move at the pace of trust rather than the pace of pressure. Meeting with God before the noise also protects your identity. The world is constantly trying to label you by your productivity, your success, your failures, or your past. If those messages reach you first, they can shape how you see yourself for the rest of the day. But when you start in God's presence, your identity is reaffirmed before it is challenged. You are reminded that you are not defined by what you do today, what you didn't finish yesterday, or what others expect from you. You are anchored in truth before you encounter opinion. There is also strength released when you start the day this way. Many people feel tired not because they have done too much, but because they have been carrying mental and emotional weight since the moment they woke up. The noise drains you before the work even begins. Meeting with God first allows you to lay those weights down early. Anxiety loosens its grip. Fear loses momentum. You don't walk into the day already depleted. You walk in filled, steady, and aware. When you meet with God before the noise starts, your perspective changes. Problems that once felt overwhelming shrink into proper size. Challenges no longer feel personal attacks, but moments that require wisdom and patience. You stop interpreting everything through emotion and start seeing through faith. This doesn't mean the day becomes easy. It means you become anchored. You are no longer shaken by every interruption or unexpected turn because your foundation was set before the storm of the day arrived. The noise of the world thrives on reaction, but meeting with God first trains you to respond instead. Reaction is impulsive, emotional, and often regretful. Response is thoughtful, calm, and guided. When your morning begins in stillness, your day reflects that stillness even when things get loud. Your words carry weight, your decisions carry peace, and your actions carry intention. Starting your day this way is a quiet declaration of trust. It says you believe guidance matters more than speed. Alignment matters more than achievement, and presence matters more than productivity. It shifts your focus from what you must do to how you are meant to walk through it. And once that alignment is set before the noise begins, it continues to echo through every hour that follows. Giving God the first and not the leftover is a decision that reshapes the order of your life. What you give first always carries the greatest value. And what you give last is often what remains after your energy, focus, and patience have already been spent. Many people don't mean to push God to the margins of their day. It happens quietly through delay and distraction. The morning begins with good intentions, but then the clock moves faster than expected. Responsibilities rise up, and God is postponed until later. Over time, what was meant to be priority becomes optional, and what was meant to be sacred becomes rushed. When God receives only the leftovers, the relationship becomes shallow, not because God withdraws, but because attention divided. Leftover moments are filled with fatigue, wandering thoughts, and impatience. The heart is no longer fully present, and the mind is already scattered across unfinished tasks. But when God is given the first moments of the day, the best attention is offered, not the exhausted remainder. Focus is sharper, the spirit is more open, and the heart is more willing to listen rather than hurry. Giving God the F. First is an act of trust. It says you believe that time spent with God is not time lost, but time invested. The world teaches that productivity comes from constant motion, but spiritual alignment comes from intentional stillness. When you give God the first, you are trusting that He can do more with your day than you can do without Him. You are placing direction before action and wisdom before effort. That order changes how the rest of the day unfolds. The struggle to give God the first often comes from fear of falling behind. There's a quiet belief that stopping to pray, reflect, or listen will delay progress. But the opposite is true. When God is placed first, unnecessary stress is removed. You stop chasing everything and start moving with purpose. What once felt like pressure becomes clarity. Tasks are no longer approached with anxiety, but with confidence that each step is guided Leftover time carries leftover energy. By the end of the day, the heart is heavy, the mind is tired, and the spirit is worn down by decisions and interactions. Trying to connect with God in that state often turns into quick words rather than deep surrender. Giving God the first protects the relationship from becoming transactional. It shifts prayer from a last resort into a first response. Instead of running to God only when things go wrong, you begin with God before anything happens at all. When God is given the first, priorities begin to align naturally. You start to recognize what truly deserves your attention and what has been stealing it. Distractions lose their grip, not because they disappear, but because they no longer sit at the center of your focus. The day feels ordered instead of chaotic, not because the schedule is lighter, but because the heart is centered. Giving God the first also disciplines desire. It trains the soul to seek guidance before gratification and purpose. Be before pleasure. Instead of waking up and immediately feeding the mind with information, comparison, or entertainment, you choose nourishment that strengthens rather than distracts. That choice shapes the tone of the entire day. What you allow into your spirit first becomes the lens through which everything else is seen. This shift does not require long hours or perfect conditions. It requires intention. It requires deciding that God will not be fitted into whatever space remains, but will be honored at the start. Even brief moments, when offered first and fully, carry weight. They declare that God is not an accessory to life, but the foundation of it. When God receives the first, the rest of the day is no longer lived in fragments. There is a sense of wholeness that follows you into every conversation, every decision, and every challenge. You move through the day aware that what matters most has already been honored. And that awareness quietly reshapes how you think, how you speak, and how you choose. Letting God set the agenda requires surrender at a level that goes beyond words. Most people don't struggle with believing in God's guidance. They struggle with releasing control. Plans feel safe because they are familiar, measurable, and predictable. Schedules give the illusion of order. And checklists create a sense of accomplishment. But when God is invited to set the agenda, it means accepting that divine order may interrupt personal plans. It means trusting that wisdom can redirect effort without wasting it. When you ask God to order your day, you are acknowledging that insight matters more than intention. You may mean well, work hard, and stay busy, yet still move in the wrong direction. Activity alone does not guarantee alignment. God's agenda brings precision, not just motion. It filters what deserves your energy and what quietly drains it. Some doors you plan to push open are meant to stay closed, and some paths you overlook are the very ones that lead to peace and growth. Letting God set the agenda also changes how you respond. Interruptions. What once felt like delays begin to look like divine adjustments. A conversation that disrupts your schedule may carry insight you didn't know you needed. A closed door may be protection rather than disappointment. When God orders the day, nothing is random. Even the unexpected carries purpose, and frustration gives way to curiosity and trust. Many people build their agendas around urgency, not importance. The loudest demand often gets the fastest response, even if it adds no real value. When God sets the agenda, urgency is replaced with discernment. You begin to recognize the difference between what is pressing and what is essential. Not every request deserves a yes, and not every opportunity is meant to be pursued. God's direction gives you the confidence to decline without guilt and to wait without fear. There is also freedom that comes with letting God lead the schedule. Self-made agendas often come with pressure to perform and prove. Every task becomes a test, every delay a failure. But when God orders the day, the burden of control lifts. You are no longer responsible for forcing outcomes, only for walking in obedience. That shift releases peace. You do your part with excellence, but you trust God with the results. When God sets the agenda, priorities move from being reactive to being intentional. Instead of constantly adjusting to circumstances, you move with purpose. Decisions are not made in panic, but in prayer. Even when challenges arise, you are not thrown off balance because the foundation of the day was established in trust. The heart stays steady even when the schedule shifts. Allowing God to order your steps also sharpens wisdom. You begin to sense when to act and when to wait, when to speak and when to remain silent. Timing becomes as important as action. Rushed decisions decrease and thoughtful responses increase. You no longer feel pressured to fill every moment with activity because you understand that rest can be as productive as effort when it is divinely directed. Letting God set the agenda doesn't remove responsibility, it refines it. You still work, plan, and commit, but with a different posture. The day becomes a partnership rather than a performance. You are not striving to make everything happen. You are cooperating with what is meant to happen. That alignment reduces wasted energy and increases effectiveness. When God orders the day, focus deepens. Scattered attention gives way to clarity. Instead of juggling too many priorities, you move through the day with a clear sense of direction. You may not see the full picture, but you trust each step because it is guided. That trust quiets anxiety and builds confidence, even when outcomes are uncertain. Letting God set the agenda teaches patience. Not everything unfolds on your timeline, and not every answer comes immediately. But there is peace in knowing that delay is not denial and waiting is not weakness. It is preparation. And when the moment is right, action flows without struggle because it has already been aligned. As you release control and allow God to lead, the day no longer feels like something you must survive. It becomes something you walk through with purpose, awareness, and calm assurance, knowing that every step has been ordered with intention and care. Every day demands something from you before it ever gives anything back. Energy is required to think, to decide, to speak, to respond, to endure. Long before the body feels tired, the soul can already be worn down by expectation and pressure. Many people step into their day already depleted because they begin spending strength they never stop to receive. They pour out patience, effort, and focus without first drawing from a source that can refill them. When you draw strength before you spend it, you stop living on empty and start moving with intention. Strength is not just physical, it is emotional, mental, and spiritual. A single conversation can drain more energy than hours of work. A difficult decision can exhaust the mind. Uncertainty can quietly wear down the heart. When you do not begin the day by drawing strength from God, these demands pile up quickly and fatigue becomes your constant companion. You may still function, but you do so with irritation, frustration, and a shortened capacity to handle pressure. Drawing strength first changes how you enter the day. Instead of bracing yourself for what lies ahead, you prepare yourself. You acknowledge that the day will require wisdom, patience, courage, and endurance, and you intentionally receive those things before they are tested. This does not make you immune to difficulty, but it equips you to face it without being overwhelmed. You are no longer scrambling for peace in the middle of stress, because peace was already established at the start. When you fail to draw strength first, you often rely on adrenaline and urgency to get through the day. That kind of energy is temporary and costly. It keeps you moving, but it slowly drains joy, clarity, and emotional stability. Drawing strength from God provides a deeper source, one that does not burn out quickly. It steadies you rather than speeding you up. It allows you to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. There is a noticeable difference between people who start their day strengthened and those who do not. One moves with calm authority, the other with quiet exhaustion. One can handle interruption without irritation. The other feels constantly on edge. Drawing strength first does not remove pressure, but it increases capacity. You can carry more without breaking, listen without rushing, and decide without panic. This strength also guards your inner life. Without it, small frustrations feel large and minor setbacks feel personal. With it, perspective remains intact. You understand that not every inconvenience deserves an emotional response, and not every challenge is a threat. Strength received early acts as a filter, keeping unnecessary stress from taking root in your heart. Drawing strength first also changes how you give to others. When you're already empty, your words become short, your patience thin, and your compassion limited. You may still show up, but you do so resentfully or mechanically. When you begin the day filled, generosity flows naturally. You give encouragement without feeling drained. You serve without bitterness, and you listen without feeling burdened. Many people wait until they feel weak to seek strength, but by then the damage has already begun. Drawing strength first is preventative, not reactive. It fortifies the heart before pressure tests it. It creates margins so that when the unexpected happens, you are not immediately overwhelmed. You move from survival mode into intentional living. This strength also anchors you when things do not go as planned. Plans shift, expectations fail, and outcomes disappoint. Without inner strength, these moments derail the entire day. With it, you remain steady. You adapt without losing peace and adjust without losing direction. Strength drawn early becomes stability later. When you learn to draw strength before you spend it, the day no longer consumes you. You move through it aware of your limits, but confident in your support. You recognize when to pause, when to push, and when to rest. Instead of collapsing at the end of the day one, steering where all your energy went, you remain present, grounded, and aware of the source that carried you through every demand and decision. Walking covered rather than concerned is a shift in posture, not a denial of reality. Concern comes naturally when the future feels uncertain and the outcome is unclear. It rises from the desire to control what cannot be predicted and protect what feels vulnerable. Many people move through their day mentally rehearsing worst-case scenarios, preparing for problems that have not yet appeared. That constant concern drains focus and steals peace long before any real challenge arrives. But when you walk covered, your confidence is rooted in trust rather than anticipation of trouble. Being covered does not mean problems disappear. It means fear no longer leads. You still face responsibilities, deadlines, and decisions, but you do so with the awareness that you are not navigating them alone. Concern isolates you inside your own thoughts, while walking covered expands your perspective. You stop interpreting every situation as a personal burden and begin to see life as something you are being guided through rather than attacked by. Concern feeds on uncertainty. It whispers questions without answers and magnifies what you cannot control. Walking covered replaces those questions with assurance. You may not know how everything will unfold, but you trust that whatever lies ahead has already been seen and accounted for. That trust calms the mind. Instead of being pulled into endless mental loops, your thoughts become grounded and steady. When you walk concerned, every obstacle feels heavier than it is. Small problems grow large because they are carried alone. When you walk covered, even serious challenges feel manageable because they are not carried in isolation. There is a quiet confidence that develops not based on your ability to handle everything, but on the belief that you are supported in every moment. That belief changes how you respond under pressure. Walking covered also guards your emotional reactions. Concern often causes overreaction. A delayed response feels like rejection. A mistake feels like failure. A difficult conversation feels like a threat. When you walk covered, emotions are processed rather than unleashed. You pause before responding. You consider rather than assume. You listen instead of defending. That emotional stability allows wisdom to lead rather than impulse. There's freedom in walking covered. Concern keeps you mentally tied to outcomes, constantly measuring success or failure before anything has even happened. Coverage releases you from that burden. You focus on faithfulness instead of results. You do what you are meant to do in the moment without being paralyzed by what might happen later. That freedom brings peace even in demanding environments. Walking covered also reshapes how you handle fear. Fear loses its power when it is exposed to trust. It may still appear, but it no longer controls your decisions. You acknowledge the risk without being ruled by it. You move forward carefully but confidently, knowing that caution does not require anxiety and wisdom does not require worry. Concern narrows vision. It causes you to fixate on threats and overlook opportunities. Walking covered widens your view. You notice possibilities where you once saw obstacles. You recognize growth where you once saw delay. You begin to see that some challenges are not meant to stop you, but to strengthen you. That perspective keeps hope alive even when progress feels slow. When you walk concerned, your body often reflects it. Tension builds, sleep is disturbed, and rest feels incomplete. Walking covered brings rest to the soul, which eventually brings rest to the body. Even when circumstance, CEs are demanding. There is an inner calm that allows you to breathe, slow down, and remain present. Peace becomes something you carry, not something you wait for. Walking covered also changes how you approach the unknown. Instead of fearing what you cannot see, you trust what you cannot control. That trust does not remove responsibility, but it removes panic. You plan wisely, act thoughtfully, and leave the rest where it belongs. The unknown becomes a place of possibility rather than a source of dread. As you move through the day covered rather than concerned, your confidence no longer depends on how smooth the path is. It rests on the assurance that every step is guided, every challenge is known, and every moment is held with care and intention. Carrying morning alignment all day long begins with understanding that alignment is not a moment but a posture. What is set in the morning is not meant to stay in the morning. It is meant to shape every decision, every response, and every interaction that follows. When your heart is aligned early, the rest of the day becomes an extension of that alignment rather than a departure from it. You are not constantly trying to recover peace or regain focus because they were established before the day gained momentum. Morning alignment creates an internal reference point. As the day unfolds and situations shift, you have something steady to return to mentally and spiritually. When pressure rises, you remember the calm that started your day. When confusion appears, you recall the clarity that grounded you in the morning. That memory becomes an anchor, preventing you from being pulled too far off course by external circumstances. Without morning alignment, the day often becomes reactive. You move from one demand to the next, adjusting constantly, rarely leading with intention. Alignment changes that pattern. You begin to recognize when something is pulling you away from your values or purpose. You notice when emotions are rising out of proportion to the situation. That awareness allows you to pause and realign rather than continue drifting. Carrying alignment throughout the day also shapes how you handle success and failure. Without it, success can lead to pride and failure to discouragement. With it, both are held in balance. Success is received with gratitude rather than arrogance, and failure is processed with humility rather than despair. You remain steady because your identity is not being reshaped by every outcome. Alignment influences how you speak. Words spoken from alignment carry intention and restraint. You listen more carefully, respond more thoughtfully, and avoid unnecessary conflict. Even in disagreement, there is respect. Even in correction, there is grace. The tone of your speech reflects the posture of your heart, and that posture was set early. Carrying morning alignment also affects decision-making. Instead of rushing into choices based on pressure or emotion, you approach them with discernment. You weigh options more clearly, recognizing long-term impact rather than short-term relief. Decisions become less about convenience and more about consistency with the direction you have chosen to walk. As the day becomes more demanding, alignment helps you recognize when to slow down. It reminds you that rest is not weakness and pauses are not failures. You are less likely to overextend yourself or ignore warning signs of fatigue. That awareness preserves both energy and clarity, allowing you to remain present rather than burned out. Alignment also shapes how you treat interruptions. Without it, interruptions feel like threats to productivity. With it, they become moments to practice patience and adaptability. You remain flexible without losing focus. You adjust without resenting. That balance allows you to move through the day without constant frustration. Carrying alignment through the day means you do not compartmentalize faith, values, or purpose into isolated moments. They become woven into the rhythm of your life. Work, relationships, and responsibilities are approached with the same grounded mindset that began the day. There is consistency between who you are in stillness and who you are in motion. When challenges arise later in the day, alignment prevents emotional escalation. You are less likely to interpret difficulty as defeat or delay as denial. Instead, you remain open to learning and growth. You ask better questions, seek understanding, and respond with maturity rather than impulse. Alignment also deepens endurance. As hours pass and energy fades, what sustains you is not motivation alone, but direction. You know why you are doing what you are doing. That sense of purpose keeps you moving forward even when enthusiasm dips. It reminds you that the day is not just something to get through, but something to walk through intentionally. As the day draws toward its end, carrying morning alignment allows reflection without regret. You are able to look back without feeling disconnected from how you began. Even if everything did not go as planned, there is peace in knowing that you moved through the day with awareness, intention, and steadiness shaped by what was established at the start.